And I tend to walk around, so I'm going to use this mic instead of that one. So you can shut that off for now because we don't need any echoes. But I want to thank Andrea, because anytime Andrea's had a great idea, we made it happen. Anytime I come up with an idea, she makes it happen. When she first came on board, I came to Beacon 9 years ago. Andrea started a few months after me. And you know what she used to say? She said, "You're always asking for money." I said, I ask for money like it's my job, because it is. Because, you know, education and support takes resources. And I'm really just delighted that under Andrea's guidance, under her umbrella, what we started with has grown exponentially. And I know we can't take any credit for it. But just in the time that we've been in the leadership, the opportunities from our farmer partners have begun to multiply. So back when I started at Beacon, and Andrea right after me, you know, if you had BCG, that's what you had with non-muscle invasive disease. If that didn't work for you after a while, okay, well, we'll just take out your bladder. It's not a big deal. It is a big deal. We know that. And if you happen to have a recurrence, well, then chemotherapy is what was provided. And if that didn't work, and I know this because I've heard it from so many, doctors said, go home and get your affairs in order. We don't have anything else. And now, at our scientific meeting that happens every summer, we have sessions on sequencing treatments. And I think a lot of that has to do with Andrea's vision and thinking outside the box and thinking big. Did you know that this year alone, we gave away over $1 million in research money? Research money that starts early career urologists and medical oncologists and translational scientists that are only working with a little piece of you on a slide, a piece of your tumor. And that's something that under Andrea's leadership has grown enormously. We only had like 1 or 2 awards back in the beginning, and now we have a translational award, we have innovation awards for high-risk, high-reward research with experienced researchers, and literally from the very beginning, Beacon has grown their own and started people on the path to be experts in bladder cancer. And our walk started with little walks all over the country, and last year, under Andrea's leadership, she took all of her skills that she brought with her from her years at the American Diabetes Association and doing walks with them to help us really grow our walks. And last year we had an audacious goal of raising $1 million. We exceeded that. So thank all of you who did that, and thank you, Andrea. And anything that I've ever wanted to do, including like, hello, you have little buttons now? I'm like, you know what? We were at an AUA meeting and they had a big bin of buttons that we were sifting through. And it's like, oh, we need to do buttons because ribbons don't work. And I said, I need to get buttons. Andrea said, okay, fine. So thank you, Andrea, for helping us, because now you can look around the room and see who else is living that experience that you're living. And I encourage you to find people to meet and connect and get new friends here, and so that's wonderful. But I have to say, anything that we've wanted to do as a team, Andrea has been behind, because it's all about the patients. I hear her say that all the time. And on behalf of everybody in this room, thank you, Andrea. So I think that, you know, again, everybody on my team, everybody in the room, we owe Andrea a lot, because Beacon grew up with Andrea. And we were just kind of fledgling, doing our thing. We started, I knew Diane and John Qualley, our co-founders, from the very beginning when they did Beacon at their kitchen table. And I remember Diane calling me when she got her first office. And then about 10 years ago, they had a position posted. I mentioned to Diane, I said, oh, you had a position for education. She said, yeah, you're overqualified. I said, I know, I just was glad that you got the position. She said, don't worry about it, I'll rewrite the description. And then I came on board with Beacon, and this has been the best 10 years of my life. I've really enjoyed being there. But thank you, Andrea. I really appreciate it. So if everybody give Andrea a round of applause, this would be great. Thank you so much. And so now, if I could switch, are we at my slides? Okay. All right, So I'm Stephanie Chisolm. I'm the Director of Education and Research, Education and Advocacy. I used to be the Director of Education and Research. I forget about that. So I've worn a lot of hats, and I got to tell you, next year in January, you're going to need a new hat because we have beacon hats, and I'm just giving a hint. The sun is setting. A new beacon is rising, and it's going to be so exciting. Mark left. So I can say that. Anyway, so I'm going to bring my colleague, Patricia Rios, up on the stage with me because we're going to talk to you about beacon resources. Patricia is my right hand. She's doing a great job. She's been with me for a year and a half, and I love that. And she's really been very instrumental in helping pull this whole meeting together. So give you a hint in your little program book. You see the agenda. We're going to talk about empowering. We're going to talk about survivorship. We're going to talk about bladder health, which even if you don't have a bladder, you still have a urinary system. So that's important. We're going to talk about stress and anxiety because, quite honestly, it hits everybody at some point. Maybe not today, hopefully not today, because hopefully today you're feeling gratitude at being in a room with people that know what you're dealing with. Talk about sexuality. There is an impact from bladder cancer on sexuality. Tomorrow, we're going to give you a chance to keep meeting new people, forming some friendships, talk about survivorship, talk about ERAS. And no, it doesn't have anything to do with Taylor Swift. It stands for Enhanced Recovery After Surgery. So many things that treat bladder cancer have a surgical component because urologists are also surgeons. And so that is something that we know happens. So we'll talk about that. And then at the end of the day, we will be talking with a urologist and medical oncologist who are rising stars in their professions about the types of research and new developments that get them excited every day. So we have a really full agenda for you. I want to thank all of our sponsors who make this possible. And as I said, who make the face of bladder cancer and the journey so much better right now because now you have options. There are options that we didn't have 10 years ago. For people who are newly diagnosed, raise your hand if you've been diagnosed in the last 6 months or a year. It's hard to see with the lights. Okay, there's a few of you in here. Bladder cancer. A lot of times people tell me all the time, I never knew you could get cancer in your bladder until my doctor told me that's what I had. And it's like, okay, because we don't talk about it. As a culture, we don't talk about it. We're probably about 20 years behind the breast and prostate cancer awareness. But we're doing our best. We've been shouting about it for a long time. I'd like to say that bladder cancer is like an iceberg. The base of the iceberg is the bulk under the water where you can't see it, the non-muscle invasive bladder cancer. People can't tell you have non-muscle invasive bladder cancer by looking at you. They don't know. You don't look any different. You haven't lost your hair. You don't look sick. You just have this weird tumor growing in your bladder. And that's about 50% of bladder cancer patients have non-muscle invasive. When the cancer itself becomes part of that bladder wall and goes into the bladder wall, it comes in contact with your circulatory system and your lymphatic system, and it's much more serious. And that's the muscle invasive stage. And that's about 33%, about a third of all bladder cancer patients are falling in that category. Back a few years ago, the only option was, well, we'll just take out your bladder. Okay. Well, you can live a very good life afterwards, but it's different because you're dealing with a urinary diversion. But now today we have other methods for preserving bladders that are really promising and lots of great stuff that you can find out from our sponsors that are out here in the information fair. And then about another 17% roughly have either locally advanced disease where it has gone beyond the bladder into some of the tissues in the pelvic area, or in some cases metastatic disease where those little cancer cells break off and travel through your bloodstream or lymphatic system to somewhere else in your body and set up shop. And either way, when you hit an iceberg in a submarine or a ship, there is going to be some trauma. And so that's really what we're here to talk about today. How do you thrive in survivorship? Each year, over 83,000 people are going to be diagnosed with bladder cancer. And once you hear the cancer word, the C word, most of the time, everything after that sounds like wah, 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 wah. We all sound like the adults on the Charlie Brown cartoons. They never said any words, they just had noise. And that's what happens. And when you find BCAN, we hope that it gives you some clarity. The beacon of hope, that's really what we do. And some of you might have said, oh yeah, I'm gonna go to that BCAN meeting. It's BCAN, like beacon of hope, beacon of light, all of these things that really, we hope, shine a light on the 6th most common cancer in America, or 7th most common. And so we're really doing our best to raise awareness, make some noise, obviously support the research, and thankful for all that our partners are doing to make this experience better for all of you. Why is bladder cancer so challenging? Well, I'm a gardener. I like to work in my yard. Dandelions are not my friend. They're not intentional. So you try to pull out a dandelion when it's in your yard. Maybe you get all the roots. Yeah, maybe you miss some. Maybe one of those little puffs falls off before you even get there. You don't know that. And the next thing you know, you got more dandelions. So dandelions come back. Bladder cancer has a very annoying thing for coming back because a tumor is within your bladder to start with as non-muscle invasive. It's in fluid. Sometimes some of those cells can fall off. I've literally seen pictures where it looks like somebody threw a handful of seeds where there's new tumors that are growing. So that's surveillance that you have to go through. And the only way they can really see what's going on in your bladder is with a very invasive cystoscopy, a little fiber optic camera that goes in and shines a light in your bladder, and the urologist looks around to see what's going on. So it is really challenging to treat. It's hard to get those clean margins that you've heard people talk about with other tumors, solid tumors that they have cut out. It's hard to see that when it's inside your bladder. So it does create a lot of challenges. So it's the 7th most common cancer in America. It has a very high rate of recurrence, and it's expensive to treat in case you hadn't noticed. I think most of you have probably noticed that. And we do know that 60 to 80% of bladder cancer tumors are treated by their community-based practitioners. So raise your hand if you're being seen in a community-based practice. Okay, a few of you. So if your doctor didn't give you information about BCAN, we encourage you to take some stuff back and let us know. We'll send your doctor information on your behalf saying, hey, your patient came to us and we want you to make sure that you have this to give to others so that they don't have to find us on the internet with Dr. Google. So I wanted to just start with a few clarifications. In the beginning, I said, I wanted to, in the past, I've said, raise your hand if you're a patient. Everybody raise their hand. And raise your hand if you're a survivor. And people are like, I don't know, am I a patient? Am I a survivor? I don't know what it is. And what's the difference? So a survivor is a person who survives, especially they're remaining alive after an event in which others have died. And unfortunately, that does happen with bladder cancer. A person who copes well with the difficulties in their life, which I think bladder cancer categories, that's one of those big categories. And we also like to think about the idea of thriving, to grow or develop well or vigorously. Even though you might have a pretty significant life-changing event with a bladder cancer diagnosis, there are plenty of you who are thriving beyond that diagnosis, to prosper, to flourish. These are all terms that we want you to kind of start thinking about because that's the underlying theme of these summits. It's about thriving and surviving, to progress or realize a goal despite of circumstances that you hadn't planned for. So we define survivorship with our survivorship working group, which is our next topic after Patricia and I are done. As a person is considered a cancer survivor at the time of diagnosis through the balance of life. Survivors include those living with bladder cancer and those who are free of cancer. I love to see all the Facebook posts about NED. Anybody know what NED is? No evidence of disease. I wish that on all of you, that you become NEDs. This is great. So we're really talking a lot about thrivership. Fluid, it changes. Sometimes you need help. Sometimes you don't need help. Sometimes you can be a help. For some of you, you're volunteers in our Survivor to Survivor program. You share your experiences to help other people understand their journey, to feel like I can ask questions, I can get information. These are resources that are available to me. And so with that, we're really focused on thrivership, kind of a combination of survivorship and thriving. So welcome to the Bladder Cancer Summit. I'll give you a little background. 51% of you in the room have had a bladder cancer diagnosis. 20% are family or friend. So we see you wearing caregiver buttons on your lanyards. About 17% are pharma partners. 8% of the people coming to this meeting this weekend are healthcare providers. 4% are BCAN staff. We're all in the bladder cancer community. So where did you come from? 42 of you were from Pennsylvania. When I built this slide last week, that's what the registration was. 19 from New Jersey, 18 from New York, 10 from Washington, the state. So we do have some groupies here, which is great. 9 from Massachusetts. And in all, we have 27 states represented, including the District of Columbia. So that's wonderful. It's a great community. Welcome to the club that you never wanted to join, but we're glad you're here, okay? So now, who do you want to meet at the summit? Now, I made it easier because this is the first time we've had the buttons. But please stand up so we can all see each other when I call your group. Non-muscle invasive people. All right, take a look around, spot those buttons. Those are the orange buttons, right? Okay. All right, you guys can sit down. Now the muscle invasive people. Okie dokie. Hard to see from this angle because all the light is shining on me, but okay. Upper tract disease. Okay, look for each, there's not a whole lot of you, but look for each other so that you make sure that you are going to connect at some point this weekend. You guys have the green buttons. Advanced disease, locally advanced or metastatic. Okay, there are a few of you here. Look for each other. The support that you find and being together is really wonderful. And I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you so much for coming. Now, stand up if you are a family or friend of a survivor. Remember, we talked about survivors. Okay, sweet. I have a personal mantra, and it really is, I think, really relevant here. Joys shared are doubled. Burdens shared are halved. When you have a support person that can help you on this journey, it makes it less of a journey because you're sharing that burden, and I think that's really important. Any of you in the group doing research or taking care of bladder cancer patients that are in this room? Raise your hand. I see a few of you. Some of them are speakers. Some are also part of the bladder cancer community because they have personal experience with bladder cancer. So this is great. We thank all of you for working in this space. And raise your hand if you work for one of our pharma partners. Again, thank you guys so much. Thank you. Okie doke, a couple more things. Andrea already asked you, how many are here for the first time? A lot. This is great. This is wonderful. And then, again, how many were diagnosed this year? A smaller group, but good. I'm glad you found us. How many of you were diagnosed more than 5 years ago? All right. Look at this. There's a lot of you here. Now, how many diagnosed more than 10 years ago? There's still a lot. You know what that says? That says hope. That says hope. That there are people that are living a long time and living well. But we know that bladder cancer can be scary. So every time when I do this slide, I use the same little people on my PowerPoint, but I try to match wherever we are. So when we were in Seattle, I had the mountain behind it. When we were in Arizona, I did the desert. In Philadelphia, I'm like, okay, it looks like a busy street. Maybe it's a little scary street. So maybe you wouldn't want to walk down the street by yourself. But it is a journey, and you don't have to do it alone. So we're going to walk through BCAN resources, and I'm going to turn the clicker over to my colleague, Patricia, so you get to see her and hear her in person. And I'm going to sit down and watch.
Thank you, Stephanie. So I have the honor of walking you through the resources. As you heard, I recently joined. It's been almost a year and a half. And when I first joined BCAN, I was so impressed with all the resources that were developed because they really consider the many ways in which people learn. And so I hope you are able to see that as I go through those resources. But before I get started with what's available in terms of resources, I want to mention the best resource that you have, and some of them are here today, and that is the BCAN team. Many of them are at the registration, staffing the tables. If you haven't had the opportunity to meet them, I highly encourage you to say hello and also see how you can get involved with them. Since not everyone was able to make it, we're going to walk through all the staff members so you get to see their names and faces. Of course, the first person needs no introduction, Andrew, our CEO, but right next to her is Alina, who you may have seen walking around with the camera. She's part of our marketing team. Valerie Aldana, who's not here today, she is part of our research team. Jocelyn also is very familiar to many of you because Jocelyn, who is now our Senior Development Manager and Walk Director, does the walks. As you know, this year we had over 15 walks across the U.S. And so this is the person you want to talk to before you leave to find out if there's a walk near you or how you can get involved in supporting a walk in your community. I have the pleasure of working with Stephanie, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to share the stage with you today. Ann Collins, also part of our research team, and she's not here, but they are sending Rebecca Johnson in the middle, who is the VP of Research, Education, and Marketing. You'll get to meet her tomorrow as she facilitates the last session. Right next to Rebecca is Bernadette, who was signing up people to volunteer as part of our Survivor to Survivor program. And we'll talk a little bit about that in case you haven't heard about what that is. But also she manages all of our volunteers and chapters. And she's right in the back, actually. At the end is Chris, who also was working the registration and recently joined as our Director of Finance. And there I am next to Trini. Trini is really, if you haven't met Trini, she really is does all the behind the scenes, is someone who really makes sure that everything goes smooth. And really this event would not be possible without her, who made sure that we had the room set up and we have all the support that we need for this event. So if you can, please help us in thanking Trini if we see her. And of course, you see Mark here, who you'll be hearing from tomorrow. If you haven't had a chance to meet him also, please say hello to him. And now this one is really the newest member. He's not even a week old, I think. 2 weeks, okay. Nick also just recently joined and will be supporting our development team. And he was also working in registration today. So again, most of our members are here, and please take the opportunity to introduce yourself. And we also want to get to know you and hear about how we can better serve you. So please take the opportunity. All right, so now I'm going to walk you through what sometimes is not a smooth process, but I'm going to ask all of you to take out your cell phones and make sure that the volume is off, because we don't want phones ringing in the middle of the event. How many of you have used QR codes? Raise your hand. The majority of you, yes, but it's always a challenge. And so what we're going to do over the next couple of slides, I'm going to share some resources, and the resources have QR codes next to them. So if you've never used your phone to scan a QR code, basically what you do is you open the camera of application on your phone, and you point the camera towards the square image, which is what the QR code is called. You don't have to take a picture, so don't press take a picture. Just zoom in or face the camera towards that QR code, and then you'll have a link show up. When the link shows up, you click on that link, and that will take you to the resource. So you'll have several opportunities to try that. I will take this moment to mention that if you want to test it out too, all of you received a program book. That program book on the very back, there is a QR code that leads you to our program evaluation. We want to hear how, what you think about the event. So throughout, please don't remember, that's an opportunity for you to test out the QR code in practice, but also for you to remember to complete the program evaluation. All right. So as I mentioned, I recently, about a year and a half, joined BCAN, and when I came here, I was impressed with all the resources we had. And this slide really covers all the focus of all these resources. You know, BCAN was founded in 2005, and next year will be our 20th-year anniversary. We were funded with the mission of providing education, support, advocacy, and awareness, supporting research. And that is what you find on our website, all of those resources. So I know many of you have visited beacon.org, but really there's such a wealth of resources in there, and sometimes it may be challenging to navigate. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some of the resources, but everything can be found there. So if you don't find it, if there's something you like, or you're like, oh, I want to find that, it's on the website. And if you have trouble finding it, come find us. We'll help you navigate that.
And we're open 24/7 on the internet. So
yes.
Even in the middle of the night, when you have one of those oh my God moments, there's an answer on our webpage.
Yes, thank you, Stephanie. And I already see some of you using your phones to do the QR code. So one of the most, I think most common thing that I hear is that patients, in the moment of diagnosis, they don't have enough information. What we've done is make it easy for you to find that information. And so you will see that on our website, the information is provided based on your diagnosis. What's not listed here is OperaTrack, but there is an OperaTrack section. If you haven't had a chance to see that, please visit that part of our website. And also there is a dedicated section that we call our state resource map, state resource page, where you have, where you go and find your own state, and you find not only statistics, but also what kind of academic centers are in your state. We're gonna, in 2025, we're gonna have, continue to grow the number of resources that are listed under each state. So stay tuned for what's to come, but I highly encourage you to visit this and become familiar as new resources are added throughout next year. Now, in terms of the education, so how many of you have a copy of the Bladder Cancer Basics? Raise your hand. Very good. I wish everybody raised their hand at this point. And I saw many of you picked up a copy. We had some at the end. The Bladder Cancer Basics is one of our most comprehensive resources, especially for someone that has been newly diagnosed. It is available in print, electronically, and if you don't have one, you can request a copy. As a matter of fact, and also it's available in Spanish and English. And it covers many things, from what is bladder cancer, how is it treated, what resources are available. So if you haven't seen one, scan the QR code and you can download one directly on your phone. In addition to that, on our website, we have several what we call fact sheets covering different topics. And again, these things, copies of these fact sheets are outside. If you haven't had a chance to visit, they're on the end of the hall over there. And I would say at the end of the day of the conference, if there's any left and you want to take some for your own community, feel free to grab those. But some of these are also translated in English and Spanish, and really there are so many new terms when it comes to bladder cancer that you have to navigate. There's so many things that you're overwhelmed with the information and you're not sure what to ask. So the fact sheets make it very easy to have that reference guide and to kind of understand the important things about those specific, whether it's a treatment or condition, or surgery, et cetera. So we're always looking to grow our fact sheet resources, and you'll hear later today one of the newest ones that we have developed. So our patient education expert library, I have to say, is one of my favorite because I ensure that you have everything you need under this library. If you had an opportunity to visit this, this library has recordings of webinars we have done over the past, I don't know, 5 years, if maybe more or less. Okay, we do try to keep it fresh, but it's organized based on treatment, diagnosis, and categories, so it's easy for you to find the video that you're looking for. Now, in addition to the video, there's also transcripts of every recording that we have there, so you can print the transcript and have access to the slides. And this is something we're able to do thanks to our to the experts who really volunteer their time to participate in the webinars. We're always, as Stephanie mentioned, adding and keeping it current. So we have the live webinars, and you will find what webinars are scheduled on this page as well. There is one scheduled for next week, just in case you're interested. And of course, yes? Thank you, Karen. There are multiple ways in which you can find the patient education expert videos. It is under the support, but it's also under the bladder cancer tab too, under videos. And I say, if anything, if you're ever having trouble, see that magnifying glass right there? Just type in the keyword and it'll lead you to the page. Thank you, Karen. How many of you have listened to our bladder cancer podcast? Very good. How many of you didn't know we had a podcast? Yes. Well, this podcast is really, it's run by one of you guys. If any of you has known, has met Rick Banks, he's a patient advocate, and he is involved in all components of this podcast and works very closely with Mark from the content to figuring out what topics are relevant. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to the podcast, there's a lot of episodes you can catch up, especially if you're taking the train. That's a great opportunity. The last piece is, I think this was launched last year, right, Stephanie? Our bladder cancer app. All right, I'm going to ask you to raise your hands. How many of you have downloaded the app? Okay. Well, hopefully by the end of this program, all of you will have downloaded the app. And you can see it's available both on the Apple and Google store. And really, it's what you find on the website, you can find on the app, and much more, because you can personalize some of the information that's on the app. You can set your geographic area, you can take notes, you can sync your calendar, so if you have an appointment coming up, it will show up on the app. I have to give Mark credit for this, because he worked really hard in developing the app, and I know many of you have provided insight and feedback on how we can make this app so especially perfect for you. So if you had a chance to download it and you have some feedback to share, Mark is here. And I know we have many survivor volunteers here present. If I may ask you to raise your hand. And thank you. And if we could give them a clap, please, thank you. Our Survivor to Survivor volunteer would not be possible with our volunteers who donate their time to lend a sympathetic ear to really walk along the side of a newly diagnosed patient. And so if you've never heard of Survivor to Survivor, Survivor to Survivor is, again, a free program. And what they do is they pair you with someone who's walked a similar journey. And you don't have to be a patient survivor. You can be also a caregiver looking to speak to another caregiver. And as I mentioned, Bernadette Fitzsimmons, my colleague, is the one who runs this program. And you can call. There's a form there that on our website that you can fill out to request to be matched with another survivor.
You might also add that they provide training for you, so you're not on your own. They do very good training.
Yes. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, so if you're like, gosh, I don't know if I can do this, thank you for making that. We will equip you with the resources you need so that you feel comfortable in this role. And as I mentioned, we're signing up for volunteers. So if you feel inspired to do this, feel free. Bernadette can talk to you about what are the requirements to become a volunteer and sort of what does the commitment entail. And one of the commitments is participating in that 1.5 hour-long training. And I would like everybody to write this number down. It's an important number to keep because you never know when it may become useful to you. It's 833-ASK-4-BCA or 833-275-4222. In 2023, BCAN partnered with Cancer Care to create a support line. Even though our website is open 24/7, you can't really speak to someone through the website. With our support line, you can connect with another person, but not just any person. It is the support line is staffed by an oncology social worker, and they are there to help you navigate whatever resources you're in need, and even to listen if you need to speak to a social worker. So whether it is for you as a caregiver, you as a survivor, this is a free resource available to you. Feel free to share with others.
Regular business hours in New York, Monday through Friday. So they're not available 24 hours a day. You'll have to go back to the website for that.
Thanks, Stephanie. All right. And also on our website, you'll find that listed our 4 chapters. If you're interested in informing one or learning more, I think we have our chapter representatives here. So I'm going to ask them to raise their hand. We have, yes, there. Oh my gosh, really high, very good. So remember, if you want to learn more about what the chapters do and what it entails, those are the people you should look for. But really, their focus is to help us advance our mission and support with our awareness through the walks or awareness through tabling events, support their local community, support fundraising efforts. And next, we're going to go into advocacy. What you see listed on the screen are some of our priorities that we're continuously working on. 2024, this year actually, we started, we added veterans and burn pits as an advocacy priority. And basically, that is after hearing all the stories from our veterans around the challenges they experience in accessing care, but also receiving the benefits that they deserve. And so earlier this year, in fact, late last year, we started to advocate for bladder cancer to be added as a presentable condition under the PACT Act for those veterans exposed to burn pits, because that's not currently covered. And I don't want to take too much time, but I can, if you want to learn more about that, feel free to approach me and I can tell you where we are on that effort. Also, we understand sometimes there's treatment is so important and want to make sure that the treatment you need is available and want to be that voice. So advocating that there's no drug shortage, including BCG and other chemotherapy drugs, is one of our ongoing priorities. And you heard Stephanie talk about research, but also at the federal level, ensuring that there is research available or funding available to go towards bladder cancer innovation and advancement. And the awareness piece is so big. How many of you knew that, that May was Bladder Cancer Awareness Month? All right, good. All the hands, almost all the hands went up, but that's good. If you didn't know, now you know. May is Bladder Cancer Awareness Month, and during Bladder Cancer Awareness Month is when we host many of our walks across the nation. And so there's a lot of resources and ways in which we try to create awareness, but we can't do this without you in helping us to create this awareness. And so I mentioned this because we need your help. May will be here before we know it. And so while the walk is a great way, there's other ways in which you can help create awareness so that people, as you heard, do not hear about bladder cancer for the first time when they're being diagnosed. And so help us spread the awareness, whether it's wearing your shirts, whether it's posting on social media, or even sharing the resources that we have available. I mentioned that you'll be hearing from Mark tomorrow during lunch. He will talk about all the exciting things that will be happening in 2025, since that's our 20th year anniversary. So we're not gonna say too much, and so we'll let him deliver that tomorrow. And with that, I'm going to thank you for your attention and pass it over to Stephanie.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much. So I mentioned that BCAN funds $1 million worth of research every year, but we also have our clinical trials dashboard. No new science, no new medicine happens without clinical trials. They have to prove that it works. They have to make sure it's not causing more harm. And they do that with clinical trials. And sometimes looking for a clinical trial on clinicaltrials.gov can be a little overwhelming, a little like getting a sip of water from a fire hydrant. It just comes at you. So BCAN created what I call our Zen clinical trial dashboard. It's very peaceful. It's branded to us. It's got lots of white space, easy explanations. We even invite the investigators to provide a plain language summary so anybody can understand. So if you're ever looking, should I be in a clinical trial? Should I see if there's any clinical trials available to me? You can search by your diagnosis, by your state, and if you happen to have family that lives across the country in another state that has more clinical trials, and they don't mind you staying for 6 months, you could go and find a clinical trial there. There are all kinds of options, but if you've ever considered a clinical trial or not considered and are interested, it's a wonderful way to get access to investigational medicine, to very rigorous observation, and advance the field across the board. And it may give you the thing that you need to get to the next place before a new treatment is approved. And I think it's a wonderful option for patients. And we try to encourage everybody to consider clinical trials as a treatment option. And as I mentioned, we do this research work that we do. We have young investigators, career development awards, innovation awards, and we even grow our own where we bring in fellows who've expressed interest in bladder cancer to our scientific meeting, and we give them travel fellowships named after our co-founder, John Qualley, who sadly passed away in 2009. And so again, every year we give away more than $1 million now in research. So our new CEO is gonna have a lot to handle when they get on board, because Andrea really helped. Because when you came, what were we doing, like $500,000 a year? Wasn't even, yeah. So we've really grown that program. For those of you who want to get involved, we connect patients sometimes to our pharma partners, sometimes directly to investigators who are doing research. In many cases now, a lot of people are requiring a letter from a patient advocate saying, yes, if this research is successful, it will make a difference in the lives of people like me. So if you're interested in volunteering to be part of that, I invite you to complete that survey with that QR code, because that's the list that Patricia and I draw from as we're trying to match people for opportunities to share their story in a meaningful way that will help change the future of bladder cancer. So I encourage everybody to do that. Some of our volunteers are interested in doing things. They have been reviewers for some of these large government grants. They make sure that the investigator presents a one-page abstract in what they call lay language, meaning it's for patients, not for scientists. And then they say, okay, all these big experts are in the room with some of our volunteers, and they turn and they look to the volunteers and say, well, is this important research? Is it going to make a difference in lives of people like Gail or people like Karen? And they can tell, yeah, it is or it isn't. And that does weigh in heavily on where these $1 million grants are going. So I think it's really impactful. If you're interested in making a difference, I encourage you to volunteer to be part of our patient advocate research network. And our next topic, and are you needing to hook up the Zoom? Is she good? Okay, perfect. Our next topic is going to be about survivorship, because we have a survivorship task force, a working group that is helping us develop new materials, including our Survivorship 101, which is on that table outside along the wall where all of our other fact sheets are. I encourage you to pick one up. We'll be talking about all that in a little bit. Jocelyn is here. And we have all kinds of information about walks. We have several new walks coming up this year. It's very exciting. We'll be in Cleveland, Tampa, resurrecting our walk in the Nashville area. What other new ones do we have? Those are the 3 that I'm thinking of. There might be one more. And again, Richmond is coming back to life, which is great. We're going to have a big walk there. So we're really excited. You'll see some of our BCAN team at some of the walks. We all wait in anxious anticipation to figure out where we're going in May, because we all go all over the place, because some days we have 10 walks and there's only 10 of us, so we go everywhere. But hopefully we'll see some of you again in May. And then for those who are interested, save the date. If you want to come to San Diego, we'll be there for our spring summit, which will be, again, our 20th year. So we have just a couple more minutes. I know I've given you buttons, a chance to find each other, but I also made it easy for you to take down names and numbers. On your paper, on your table, there's a little paper. It's kind of like playing bingo. See how many people you can find to give you their contact information for follow-up, to see somebody who shares the same diagnosis, somebody that traveled to this summit the same way that you did. It's just a nice way to give you another way to track all these new friends that you're making. I encourage you to sit at different tables. We take breaks. You come back, sit at a different space. Take your water bottle with you, but mix it up. Meet other people. This is your opportunity. This is the first time you've been in a room with 180 other people that know what you're dealing with. And so that's really what this summit is all about. Our next topic is going to start on the hour, so we still have a couple of minutes. Are there any questions that I can answer right now? No? Okay, then I'll give you a 6-minute urology break. The bathrooms are over there. You can then refill for coffee. Be back here promptly on the hour. We'll get to hear from nurse practitioners Mary Dunn and Christina Amodi talking about survivorship. Thank you.